KB in the bay going crazy. Put peace on the hood, Mercedes. Young boys letting off 80. Leaning next to a DR like Haiti. This ain't no Porter, no Bailey. No internet clown gon' play me. Money ain't never gon' make me. I can win with a couple bucks like Brady. And she ain't baby, you cannot shame me. What they gon' pay me to shut my mouth? Ain't gotta okay me, then they gon' save me. I'm finna stay free on the house.
And that's another thing that I want to kind of say. I am not saying that a white person married to a person of color cannot display a glorious transcultural marriage. What I am saying is that the vast majority operate and have an expectation that when they are marrying a person of color, that they are married, that the marriage dynamic is not going to be a transcultural one, but it's going to be a colorblind one. It's going to be one where everything else can come into that home except for that spouse's cultural and ethnic identity. She got to leave her blackness at the door, or he has to leave his blackness at the door. So again, we haven't touched on that, but one of the other dynamics that I've often seen, and I see this regularly, as I mentioned before, when it comes to like the seminary dynamic, is oh my gosh, I know I'm going to be throwing a grenade here, but it makes my
I'm so
stomach,
excited because it's not me.
it makes my you're here for the drama. It makes my stomach hurt when I see Black men self-deprecate themselves, crap on their culture and ethnic identity, spit on their own Black hair, essentially spit on their ancestors and the struggles of their ancestors. And their white wives sit back, feet up, hand behind the head, just chilling, like, yeah, let him have it, baby. That other side of colonization and exoticism of when white women sit back and actually enjoy or delight in their Black husbands tearing down Blackness. They delight in their Black husbands being anti-Black in order to have them. And I've talked about that I do believe that there can be white women who would not tolerate their husbands doing that. They'd be on the front lines of hell no if it was their husband espousing anti-Blackness. I know white women who are more pro-Black than their Black spouses, because again, oftentimes it's like, okay, I'll put that on the side. I'll go there in a second. But there is this dynamic where many times I see Black men and other men of color will marry into whiteness because of self-hatred. And as a counselor, that's one of the things I have to deal with. One of the things I have to deal with, even based upon like that article that I mentioned before, talking about when the church colonizes femininity, is what do you do when a couple comes to the realization that the reason that they got married is because of the indoctrination that both of them received in regards to why they should marry the other. Black man has been told you need to marry a white woman, not for love primarily, but because that is going to be what determines that you're safe. And the white woman's been told to marry the Black man because that was missional. And that was a demonstration, not primarily of love, but a demonstration of actual humility, that they would be willing to marry a person who's Black or brown. And so when a couple who does love each other comes to the recognition that the reasons why they got married is because of these things, this is going back to what you were saying, Holly. I speak on that because that is devastating. It's devastating to the white woman, it's devastating to the Black or brown man, and it's devastating to the witness of the kingdom of the kingdom of God in the church, which is supposed to be displaying unity and diversity, because they were indoctrinated into these profoundly toxic things that they now have to work through, of getting past that to the love dynamic that they have between each other, and whether or not that's strong enough to overcome the motivations that led them into that marriage. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so there is that on the other side of things as well, of the fact of how often even black and brown men will marry white women because of their desire for power, or because they want to be perceived as safe, or they want to be seen as valuable. So their own insecurities, they can't find value in the affirmation and support of Black women. And so they look for it within white women. And I speak out against that, not only not even in a posture of like being anti-white in the sense of white, but in this posture of like, yo, I believe that women who are classified as white, who are made in the image of God, are worth more than that. So it's not just, this goes on both sides for me. It's like, when I look at it, it's like, no, a white woman deserves to be loved and treasured as an image bearer and as a person holistically for who she is, not as a gateway for power for a man of color.
Wow. Yeah. That's so good.
Likewise, a woman should be able to be affirmed and valued and dignified and loved and treasured comprehensively because who she is, not because of simply because her melanin is seen as sexy by a white man because of exoticism. Or because of the texture of her hair is something that's seen that he wants to explore because of his exoticism. And so exoticism on both sides of that spectrum, and again, exoticism is simply the sexualization of ethnic features rather than actually the actual person who embodies that identity. So those things impact both people. These marriages based upon what we're talking about is not just bad for people of color. Right. It's also bad for white people because it is them settling for a dynamic that is, and I'm talking about the other side. I'm not talking about the side of the toxic man or the woman who's trying to use a man, a Black man for the anti-Black. I'm talking about for those in these situations where they're either being on both sides of the spectrum. There's a using that's happening. Yeah. It is just as detrimental to sincere white people as it is to sincere people of color.
Like this ain't clout. This isn't real life. I got a real life. Price is better and it ain't no doubt. I ain't got time to debate. There's countries to save. Afghanistan, Cuba, I pray.